In order to get himself writing first thing in the morning, Elmore Leonard would force himself to get into the scene of whatever he was working on before he put on the first pot of coffee. The man was a fucking savage. Better than food, man. Hello everyone, welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. I'm your host, Clifford Lee Sargent. Great to see you as always. Time magazine called him the Dickens of Detroit. He wrote 45 novels, influenced people such as Anthony Bourdain and Quentin Tarantino, who stole a book of his when he was 15 years old, got caught, then went back and stole it again. And then later on, much down the road, Tarantino directed the film adaptation of Leonard's novel Rum Punch, which was Jackie Brown. Leonard's had great films adapted from his novels and very bad ones as well, I'm told. Or so he says. Some of them more than once. And Stephen King once called him the great American writer. In the early days, Leonard was working as a copywriter at an agency downtown, writing ads for Chevrolet, appropriate in the Motor City. Cars are frequently mentioned in his 1976 novel Swag, a hard-boiled tale of cops and robbers set here in Detroit. Before crime novels, Leonard wrote westerns such as 3:10 to Yuma. And he ended up, writing like 45 novels, like a shit ton of books. The last one was published in 2012. He passed away in 2013. Leonard was old school, writing all of his novels in longhand, no computer. He was influenced by the friends of Eddie Coyle, by the crime novelist George V. Higgins. I've seen the film with Robert Mitchum, which is awesome, total classic, but I haven't read the book, though I want to. The criminals in this novel and Leonard's fiction are the total opposite of someone like Alain Delon in Les Samurai, for example, the strong, silent type. They're chatty, they talk too much, the whole narrative depends on it. They're like Jules and Vincent from Pulp Fiction, it's just I mean, any character from Tarantino's movies, you know. It's all dialogue driven. It's all about the dialogue. The dialogue reveals the characters. The running joke in the book is the arguments they're always having. They're basically like it's less of like a couple of like criminal friends and more of like these guys in a relationship. It's actually, it's kind of funny. It seems like every conversation between the two turns into bickering. Leonard grew up in Detroit, and so his novels take place in and around this city and the suburbs. Detroit has a fascinating history filled with, like many cities, crime. There's even a podcast on Spotify called Crime Town that discusses the history of Detroit's corruption, of which there is plenty. We'll talk more about this in another review I've got coming up. But for now, let's just say the setting of Detroit for a crime novel is a great one, with many possibilities. Swag is the story of a Detroit car salesman named Frank, who in the very beginning meets another guy named Ernest, also known as Stick, who's into cars. In the very first scene of the book, he happens to be driving off Frank's lot in one that he just stole. "You mind if I ask where you're going?" is the first thing he says to him. But later on, after he calls the police and Stick is caught, when he gets the chance to identify him and have him thrown in jail, he gets a better idea. He decides he wants to work with him. So they go drink ouzo at a place called the Bouzouki Club in Greektown, and Frank pitches the idea of armed robbery to Stick. Armed robbery! Did I get that? Trainspotting? Bigby? Great film. I should read that book. Funny enough, I drove past a place called Bouzouki in Greektown the other day. Turns out it's a strip club. Not sure if it's the same place, but there you go. So Frank takes these cocktail napkins and writes down, on each of them, his 10 rules of crime. Frank Ryan's 10 rules for success and happiness were written in blue ink on different cocktail napkins from the Club Bouzouki, the Lafayette Bar, Edjo's, and a place called the Lindell AC. Some of the rules, especially the last few, were on torn napkins with crossed out words and were hard to read. The napkins said, number 1, always be polite on the job. Say please and thank you. Number 2, never say more than is necessary. Number 3, never call your partner by name, unless you use a made-up name. Number 4, dress well. Never look suspicious or like a bum. Number 5, never use your own car. In parentheses, details to come. Number 6, never count the take in the car. Number 7, never flash money in a bar or with women. Number 8, never go back to an old bar or hang out once you have moved up. Number 9, never tell anyone your business. Never tell a junkie even your name. And number 10, never associate with people known to be in crime. So they start holding up liquor stores and supermarkets, being very polite while they do so. And it works. for a while, of course. Then Frank starts breaking rules. Stick shoots a couple of guys trying to rob him while he's trying to steal a car. As you can see, these things sort of get complicated and sort of compound on each other. At one point, they intend to hold up a bar, but then a guy who was sitting at the bar when they walked in pulls out a shotgun and proceeds to rob the bar, gets the money, and then they pull their guns out and in front of the crowd rob the robber and leave him locked up with the crowd, all of them getting drunk and hitting him. Leonard doesn't take himself seriously, you know? He's somebody who seems to really enjoy writing. And these aren't super nihilistic, grim stories, you know? They're just interesting stories about interesting people. Yeah, it's pulpy, for sure. Like, it's about this deep, right? But it's a work of art. And that's the interesting thing. What makes you finish a book like this? What makes you not like stop at page 5 and be like, oh, Jesus Christ, what a cliche, I can't do it. No, there's something about it, right? It's the style. There's a comedic element to the whole thing. Not too much, but enough. The draw of the book is something like, well, how would you actually rob a place? What's the difference between robbing a liquor store, a supermarket, and a department store? You follow these guys in all the stages of planning and see how they do it. So Leonard also has his own 10 rules of writing, which I found out about from Bourdain, actually. They're in a book that was published after Leonard wrote an article for the New York Times listing them, the 10 rules. There's a link to it in the description box below. His whole idea is to remain invisible as an author. The rules are as follows. 1. Never open a book with weather. 2. Avoid prologues. 3. Never use a verb other than said to carry dialogue. 4. Never use an adverb to modify the verb said. 5. Keep your exclamation points under control. 6. Never use the words suddenly or all hell broke loose. 7. Use regional dialect, patois, sparingly. 8. Avoid detailed descriptions of characters. 9. Don't go into great detail describing places and things. 10. Try to leave out the part that readers tend to skip. And Leonard wrote that if it sounds like writing, I rewrite it. Of course, the rules aren't set in stone, and this applies particularly to his style, which is very distinct. I think Faulkner could break every damn one in the first third of a page, but his whole thing is trying to avoid literary masturbation. What he doesn't want to perpetuate is what Steinbeck refers to as hoop-de-doodle. Steinbeck was an influence on Leonard, along with Hemingway. No hoop-de-doodle. Hoop-de-doodle. What is it with people of that era? Goofy-sounding words were such a novelty. 1950s slang is so weird. Anyways, he discusses some of this in a video I've linked to in the description box below. Notice the Morphine playing in the background. Excellent choice. That's one of my favorite bands. Absolutely. Hands down. Of all time. I love Morphine. Love that band. Wonderful band. I wish I did music reviews so I could tell you about them more. But anyways, we must move on. Mark Sandman. God, what a bassist. Died on stage in Italy. Those books are all about criminals and their activities. Leonard himself clearly has this unshakable Midwestern politeness about him. The book never goes too dark, and the violence isn't graphic. You know, it's not really about that. Very snappy, very clever dialogue, something very Midwest about it. Very pragmatic, very no bullshit. The actual crimes take place in a realistic manner, but Leonard's execution of the twisted and increasingly complex plot is what's really impressive. Particularly because it goes fast and you get hooked, and investigating the mechanics of a book that's able to hook you is worth doing, especially if you're a writer. This is all meticulously crafted. Like there's a method to crime, there's a method to writing. 10 rules for crime, 10 rules for writing. You're not going to come away from this thing going, who am I? But you will come away saying, how do you do that? What propels you, of course, is the question that hooks you in. What's going to happen? How's it going to end? How are they going to get away with it, man? That's what Elmore's good at. Or Dutch, as he was nicknamed. That's what Dutch was good at. That and the whole snappy dialogue thing, I mean, he's just got that down to a science. For Leonard, it's all about characters and their voices and the style. Better than food. Totally unique. Check it out. Especially if you got some time on an airplane or something. This would be a good airplane read for sure. You know, not too complex. If you're underslept, you can just kind of like roll through it. I think you should read different books at different points of the day, and different, you know, and depending on how many hours of sleep you got, really, and the different places you're going to be in. The same book, the book that you're going to read on a train or an airplane is not going to be the same book you're going to read alone in your house. They take different amounts of mental energy, of course. So, you know, sometimes it's nice to do some lightweight, basically. And this one will go fast. So check it out if it sounds like your thing. So is it your thing? Who should read it? Yeah, if you like crime novels or films, this will definitely be up your alley, of course. If you were excited about the review I did of Hard Rain Falling recently, or Fat City and that kind of stuff, not as much depth, but in the same world, I'd say. If you like gritty, hard-boiled detective novels or 70s action films, or if you love books or films that are really dialogue-driven, if you love Hemingway and Steinbeck and you love crime, well, affiliate link down below. Did I just spit all over the book? Sorry, Dutch. And of course, if you're a fan of The Friends of Eddie Coyle with Robert Mitchum, or Taxi Driver. Bourdain recommended that one on his Criterion Top 10 list, and that's actually, he's also how I found out about Elmore Leonard. So, he's on my mind, for sure. Rest in peace. And I know that anniversary is coming up, and nobody's talking about it. That's something I wanna discuss sometime, either in writing or or something. Nobody's talking about the suicide of Anthony Bourdain. At least not in the way where I feel it needs to be talked about. But that's a whole nother review or topic video or something else or book. All right, time for the coffee lottery. For those of you who are new, the coffee lottery is where I take all the names of the patrons on Patreon who have donated $5 or more per video. I place their names in this mason jar and I pull out a name for each review. The winner is sent a hard copy of the book I'm reviewing plus a bag of coffee roasted by yours truly. I'm drinking some of it right now. It's a delicious Ethiopian. If you'd like to get in on that, you can head to the description box below and click the link, or you can head over to patreon.com/booksarbetterthanfood and donate $5 or more per video. I sincerely appreciate it. It does help keep this whole thing going. If you donate $1 or more per video, then you can get access to the patron-only reviews, and I am going to continue to do those because I feel it's a good way to give back to the folks who have supported the show. But I will always have free videos, most definitely. That's the #1 priority. Thanks very much to everyone who has supported the show. Best of luck to you. All right, here we go. Michael L. Thank you very much, Michael. Really appreciate it. You're going to receive swag by Elmore Leonard and some delicious coffee. All right, that's all I've got for you today. Hope you're all doing well. Great to see you as always. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this. It helps. You can follow me on Instagram as well. I'd really appreciate it. And always remember, bring a book wherever you go. You just never know when you'll have some time, so always bring a book. Take care of yourselves, have a good night, and I'll talk to you soon. Ciao.